Have you ever thought just how boring or ridiculous news commentary is today? Welcome to the RealJax podcast with Jim and Larry. The RealJax podcast. From crime and politics to entertainment, you can expect something different. Now, let's get real, Jax.
Hey, welcome back to RealJax with Jim and Larry. We've got guest Ray Walden with us again, and we also have a new guest on the line, Dean Crisp. After Larry reads our sponsors,
yeah, we're going to read those pretty quick.
We'll talk to these guys.
Extreme Wings, 4 convenient locations, family sports, restaurant, and grill. Hey, y'all stop by the West Side location and see me off Roosevelt. Tremendous barbecue, open since 2007, 8927 Hurlong Road. Full barbecue menu. Everything's homemade. They'll cater any kind of party or event. They love first responders. Advanced Window Tent, 5024 Sunbeam Road, over 26 years experience. Ricky Tillman, good friend of mine. 3M Platinum dealer, highest level of 3M dealer around. They tent vehicles, homes, and businesses. Dibble Roofing, Norm Brewer was on the show. You reach Norm at 904-910-5728. They've been open since 1949. You can also email Norm at norm.dibbleroofing@gmail.com, any kind of roofing need you need. D-Way Towing, Doug Dixon, who was on the show, 100 South Jackson Avenue. Phone number there is 356-3929, area code 904. All your towing needs through them. Shannon Judge, known her forever, and her husband's one of my best friends. She's with Legends of Real Estate. Shannon Judge, realestate@gmail.com. Her phone number is 904-200-2158. And, of course, Jim's business, Secure One Protection Services.
Yeah, Secure One Protection Services since 1986. We've been your number one choice for protection. Same phone number for 35 years, 356-1111.
All right, on last episode we had Ray on. We talked about his experience and his evolution of leadership and how he views leadership, and obviously me and Ray go way back. And he talked about Dean Crisp, who we have on the line. So, Ray, just kind of bring us up to speed real quick on how you met Dean and how he influenced you, because I know we've talked about him a couple of times.
Yep. So Dean, I met Dean taking a FBI LEADA course and listening to him, me and a few other guys that were in the class. We talked about bringing him back to the agency at Clay County, and so I did the trilogy, which is a 3-course series that you do with FBI LEADA, and Dean taught in several of those classes, and so just a phenomenal instructor. Guy's been a chief at 2 different agencies, and he was a chief at, he'll probably talk about this later.
Yeah, we'll get him to talk about his background.
One of the largest law enforcement agencies in South Carolina, but phenomenal instructor. Well, he also had some other stuff that he talked about, being an intentional leader, and just the guy's deep when it comes to leadership, and just the growth I experienced personally going to his classes and his training was unbelievable. And I've heard this from other people who shared the same thing with me, that go to the class, have the same experience. And so just a phenomenal guy when it comes to leadership and his vision and what he sees in law enforcement, and got a lot of experience in law enforcement, so we definitely can relate in the business. And that's really how I met. And since then has become just a friend and a mentor, man. I mean, we text each other and talk, and even though I'm out of the business now, I still like to talk about it. But Dean's an incredible guy. So I'm glad he came on today to talk. So.
That piqued my interest, because you go through law enforcement training, and sometimes you'd hear a guy, "Is this guy for real? This is terrible. I'm about to go to sleep." And then you get a few once in a while that, like, man, that was really good. Like that you're writing notes down. You're you're looking at how is this going to influence me? So, I'm gonna call him Chief Crisp. You've been Chief a couple times.
Hey, man.
If you can kind of give us, and I got your bio, but if you can just kind of run through your bio, I think it's a little more personal. Just how you started and where you ended up, and then how you ended up becoming the instructor or the influencer that you are.
Well, first of all, I think it's certainly the fact that I owe Ray money has paid off. That's all them good things he said about me. I tell you what, the fact that when you owe people money, they're going to say good things.
That's right.
About
They will.
I mean?
Or bad ones later on, depending.
Yeah, that's right. But at least I got him on the hook while I'm on the air,
Yes,
so it's
sir.
good. Now, I met Ray in a class, and I was teaching with FBI LEADA, and I'd retired from I was chief in 2 places, but before that I was a I started out when I was young, man. I didn't know what I was going to do in life, but I was a pretty good baseball player, and I wasn't real smart going to school. And I got drafted by the Minnesota Twins and played a couple of years in the minor leagues, and then decided I was going to do something. My dad was a cop, and I became a cop. And I started copping back in 1978. That's a long time ago.
Yes, sir. That's a minute.
I'll tell you what. And so I did that for a number of years, and knew that I wanted to kind of get in leadership, because when you're in a leadership position with a title, back in those days, you kind of had to have a title, right, to make really a lot of influence. Today, that's not the case. Everybody has the ability to kind of influence. But back in those days, I wanted to get in a leadership role. I got promoted pretty early up in the high ranks. I was a captain at 29. I was a major at 31 and a police chief at 33, which is pretty crazy. If I'd do it over again, not sure. One of the things that we all do when we make a decision is we all use experience as kind of our guide. That's kind of our default mechanism that helps us. But if you don't have any, what in the world are you going to do? So I found myself in a position where I had to really learn a lot of things quickly. So I started reading a lot and started pushing my leadership. So I say I've been three things. I've been kind of a practitioner of law enforcement. I've kind of, been there and done a little bit of it. I've been a teacher of it, you know what I'm saying, of law enforcement.
Yes, sir.
And, I've been a student of law enforcement. And leadership, where I've just basically had to learn, because I wasn't that good at being a leader. Right. And when you're not that good and you're a police chief, you better do something, or you're not going to last very long.
Not very long. Yes, sir.
No. And so then I was a chief for 17 years. That was a long time. Ended up retiring from the police department in Columbia, South Carolina. It's got about 500, 600 employees, something like that. I mean, it's a decent sized agency, great city, great people. Love law enforcement. And then I became an instructor and travel around the country with FBI LEDA. And then now I'm still teaching with them, but doing my own thing. Just finished my second book, Essential Leadership Lessons from the Thin Blue Line. And then I've got my third one that's at the publisher right now. So just trying to stay busy with it, and really, Bo, to be honest with you, it's not so much about who I was. It's just what I try to pass on to people. To be honest with you, all that just says I'm a has-been. That's really what that says. When you get to be retired, you learn real quick. You're a has-been.
Yeah, I know.
So that's pretty much me. So, but that's just a little bit of my background. Got twin sons. Been married to my wife for this will be our 40th year together.
Congratulations!
And oh my God! And I got twin. Listen, I'm one of the only people that's got probably 3 sets of twins grandchildren.
Oh,
so crazy! I know, man. I can't send my family. So, but that's a little bit about me. So
what's your first book? The first book.
I wrote a book called Leadership Lessons from the Thin Blue Line, and then I did a rewrite of that book where it was the Essential Leadership Lessons. And this third book coming out is going to be called Leadership Recipe.
We got it up on the screen, and all on Amazon, huh?
Yeah, well, they're on Amazon, so that they're out there. So
yes, sir.
Yeah, it was an Amazon bestseller. One thing I never really thought I could be. This is a guy that graduated. There was I tell you a little bit about my mindset. When I graduated high school, there was like 261 people in my class, I think. And I graduated ranked 249. And so
I was the same way.
Sounds like me.
Right. And
who would have thought?
Yeah, well, I went and told when my mother came to graduation, people ask me, well, I ask them often, I say, what's that tell you about me? And a lot of people say, well, you're lower in the class, you didn't do whatever. I say, well, look, hell, it told me that there was 12 dumber than me. So at least I had a chance.
Oh, that's phenomenal. I went to Forest High School. I didn't think very much. And I was actually, a couple of things I tested and was actually in a couple of AP classes, but I didn't do very well and had to go to one summer school. And I remember I was in the sociology class, and the instructor, he ended up coaching collegiate football later on, but he said some kids in the class who were talking about, what kind of career, and they saw me, just old country boy. They thought, what you going to do? And they said, well, Larry's probably just going to sell bait or something like that. He's going to sell fishing worms. And I guess those sociology teachers, he saw a report that I wrote, and he's like, yeah, I think this guy may surprise you later on. You don't think about it because it didn't matter. None of that. It wasn't important. I didn't mature till later on, and some of that influence. My youngest son's kind of like that. He was fighting and carrying on and doing a bunch of wild stuff in school, and comes out and He's in this 4-year program, this apprenticeship program. He's always top of the class and president's list and, 95 average and above. But some of us just take a little longer to cook,
Yeah, that's right. Well, one thing, that's for sure.
So, I appreciate that. So how did you develop? Because I know you have an influence over a guy like Ray Walden. What kind of stuff, what did you see? What was the evolution of your thoughts on law enforcement, or at least leadership?
Well, I mean, first of all, Ray Walden is a tremendous leader. I mean, he's one of those guys, and Ray, he's got this kind of, he sees things, one of the things that I always say about leaders is leaders have to see more and before others. So you really have to see what others don't see, right, and you got to see it before others see it. And if you kind of get that kind of a mindset, Ray's one of those guys. He sees the bigger picture. And then he's thinking down the line about, where am I going? Where do I see myself? Where do I see my agency and me in a couple of years, or 3 to 4 to 5 years? And when you see somebody with that kind of mindset, that's, man, I mean, you don't have to do much work there. Ray is one of those guys that just pushes the envelope and just continues to try to get better. And I really like the fact he has a high accountability of himself. And that's one of the things that I think in law enforcement we've kind of lost over the number of years is personal accountability. We let too many dang people that don't belong in this, and too many people that are not that great, get by. And we just should do a better job of holding ourselves accountable and those people too. And you wouldn't be having these events. You look at Eric Chauvin and you look at that, 17 prior use of force incidences. And you just talk about that stuff like that, and so when you look at Ray, he certainly is one of those guys that just has that forward vision, and so I was attracted to that point where, the one thing about it as a leader is you got to hang around people better. You got to hang around people faster, smarter, brighter than you, or you're going to end up.
You don't want to be the smartest guy in the room.
No. Even if you think you are, you still got to find a way to push people to push you, And one of the things I've really found about leadership is kind of 3 things. It's leading yourself, and then the ability to lead others, and then the ability to lead an entire organization. Those are 3 separate kind of things. And you got to kind of master all those if you're going to be kind of good at the game, Right. It's like the one thing I learned about professional baseball, I didn't have a major leaguer mindset. I had a minor leaguer mindset. I came from a broken home and, all that stuff. And I didn't really understand what it took to be a major leaguer, and I didn't understand. I tell people this a lot. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is to believe the narrative that other people have of you. Now, when you begin to believe their narrative, it's always going to be way less than what you're able to accomplish. You know what I'm saying? Most people and me, like I was, they put me in bricklaying classes. And in school because I wasn't that great, and I could have believed that narrative and become a bricklayer, and there's just no way. But you got to kind of master those things yourself, and you've got to look at that in terms of leadership. And so when you understand those things, you get a little bit better. So for me, I didn't understand the business of leadership, and understanding the business of leadership is you literally have to realize, if you're going to be good, you got to lead yourself, then you got to be able to lead others, and then you got to be able to execute that in the organization. And if you can do that, you turn out to be fairly good at this,
Right.
So, I mean, that's some of the thought processes that I have right there, So
yeah, that's and then you had to learn it young, so you were picking it and putting it from different areas. Did you have? I'll give an example. I think some degree of leadership is innate, but majority is not. You have to be taught, or you have to learn it, or you have to have an influence. My specific influence was my dad, and he wasn't in law enforcement. I mean, he worked in the in the car business, but actually the parts business. So I actually posted a story. One of the first stories I got on leadership was a bathroom cleaning incident that he put me through, and it goes like this. I was about 16. I went to work for him, and then worked there till I went on the sheriff's office later on in my late 20s. And he brought me in. He wore a suit and tie to work every day, pretty much. And he says, "Hey, Larry, I need you to come clean this bathroom." And it was a warehouse bathroom. Mind you, there's some nasty dudes working in the warehouse, and there was all kind of stuff all over it. So I said, Dad, I'm not cleaning that bathroom. Have you seen that bathroom? And he said, son, you're going to clean that bathroom. And I said, Dad, that thing is disgusting. I don't want to touch that. And he looked over his glasses. That's usually the indication I got is about to get my ass kicked. And he said, son, you're going to clean that bathroom. Let me show you how it's done. He took off his coat and he threw his tie over his shoulder. He grabbed some borax and a couple of chemicals and a brush and a paper towel, and he cleaned that toilet right in front of me in a suit and a tie without the coat on, obviously. He said, if I'm not too good to clean that bathroom in a suit and tie, you're not too good either, and don't you ever look down on anybody that does. So that stuck with me for life and how I treated people, and, that was kind of influenced. But I saw him interact, more importantly, how he treated other people and how they trusted him, and they'd go in his office. And he had to raise his voice, mostly at me. I mean, he yelled at me about once a week, but I deserved every bit of it the way I was when I was young. So did you have those influences, those kind of people that you saw that thought, man, he does certain things right or certain things better, or people pay attention when he talks? You're not just a supervisor, but an actual leader.
Yeah, I've had those people in my life who have believed in me more than I believed in myself. And literally many, many years ago, I had a mentor of mine who told me, he said, look, you know what? You're better than what you think you are. And if you ever just allow people to kind of guide you in a way that they think you should go, you got to create your own path, and you got to find that. And for me, being able to do that really helped me kind of push myself forward. And I had a number of people. My dad and I, we didn't have that great a relationship growing up. My dad was kind of, and he passed last year, and God bless him. Me and him had great relationship for 40 years. But for the first 20 of those, they weren't that great. He was kind of gone, and, I didn't have that male role model, if you would.
Right.
And actually, the police department grew me. The police department created a maturity in me that I probably had not. If I had not had that, I'm not sure where I would.
You there? You cut out yourself.
I've had those. Yeah, and I really it helped guide me in holding myself accountable,
right,
and trying to do those things. And I learned a lot. Honestly, one of the things in leadership for me growing up, and when you were in leadership or you had leaders in the 70s and 80s and 90s, it's pretty much do what I tell you to do, and if you don't, I'll kick your ass.
Right.
It's kind of like that.
Yes, sir.
And it was.
You there? Dean, you cut out a second. You cut out a second. I don't know if it's
all right. Am I still with you?
Yeah, you are. You're okay now.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. No, I just said that in the 70s and 80s and 90s, when you were in leadership, it was pretty much do what I tell you to do.
Right.
And so I learned a lot by watching people that didn't do it right.
Yeah.
And so, and I learned a lot from them. And I was forced really early as a leader to kind of learn on my own, because being chief at 33 kind of puts you in you have to think big picture pretty quickly. And had I not, one of the things I tell people is the one thing that separates experience, or one thing that'll equip you pretty quickly if you don't have experience, is knowledge. And knowledge fills the gap where experience kind of drops off,
Right.
And I had to become a student of leadership where I would have never made it. I just wish that I would have had somebody like you had. I think that's so commendable that your dad would take that time and just go in there and say, hey, let me make sure you understand it ain't about you as a leader.
Right.
It's about what you do and what you're willing to sacrifice for other people. And I guess what he was really telling you was leadership's about sacrifice.
Right.
And I wish I'd had
to be a good
like
leader.
Oh God, yeah, but over the years, you kind of learn when you get the one thing about being a police chief when you're at a position like that is every mistake is hyper inflated and hyper. People make a big deal out of it. Mm-hmm. So you got to be in today's world. It's a tough business. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, usually if there's an issue and it makes it to the TV news media, it's your face that's going to be on there.
Oh my God,
talking to the news.
Yeah, I used to tell people everything you do, I own at the end of the day.
That's right. I always say, what rolls uphill, not downhill. It rolls uphill in those positions.
Yeah,
in this
that's
business.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, and I know you guys. How long did you work at the sheriff's office there in Jacksonville?
I worked there 28 years.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Man, that's tremendous. I mean, congratulations on that. Is that how you knew Ray?
It is. It is. We worked together. We made sergeant. He was my roommate when I got divorced. He already told those stories. We're not telling those stories again, but we made sergeant. We on the same list for sergeant. We made sergeant
96.
Maybe you made it before. I made it 98.
Okay.
You're probably the other second list after you. And then we made lieutenant roughly the same time, and then he went on from there, and it took me a while being involved in being the dum-dum that I was to make rank. And then when Mike Williams got elected, I think Ray may have had some influence. I made assistant chief for a while till I pissed off the mayor, and then that's another story for another day. I got a little vocal about the pension going away for the new officers. So yeah, that's a different story. But yeah, Ray and I were friends, and roommates, butted heads. But he was really smart on a lot of aspects of law enforcement. I talked about that on the last episode. He really paid attention to manpower allocation, which I think is lacking, and that's all.
Oh, yeah.
Just kind of different stuff than leadership. But anyway, I don't recall him ever, and we've probably been to a lot of the same training. I mean, we've been to some, the sheriff had these retreats. They were never a damn retreat. I remember going to the one at the beach. You remember the one at the beach?
Oh, yeah.
You just saw the beach, but you couldn't actually go on the beach. I'm like, what? This is just torture. It's not a damn retreat.
Yeah.
So, they don't even call them retreats, and now they call them advanced leadership training or whatever. But I've been to a bunch of leadership training, and some didn't really stick out. You get a few speakers, and some speakers you're like, Jesus, will this guy shut up, or just I'm tired, I want to go home. But once in a while you'll get one, and Ray, I don't recall Ray ever mentioning a whole bunch of training except for yours and the Disney World one. But that's just because he wanted to put on the Tigger suit, I think, or something. But he talked a lot about you. Me, him, and I had lunch. When about 1 hour lunches they turned into 2.5 hours, and he really put a lot of credence in the stuff you talked about. So I want to get sure the audience we have, and there's probably a lot of law enforcement people that listen to it that they get, they can see your book and kind of get your thoughts, the general mantra you have on leadership. So.
Ray is one of those kind of guys that he does get that bigger picture, but it's kind of like it's interesting you said that you and the sheriff, but you chose a good hill to die on.
Yeah.
That's the one with the pension, for your new cops. That's commendable right there. That's a hell of a good one there. So
sometimes there's a price for your principles.
Yeah.
There's a price for your
I think that was something that Larry felt really passionate about. He wasn't going to stay quiet, and if it was kind of counterproductive to some career moves, that's just how it worked out. But
everything works out for a reason.
It does. He's still passionate about it.
Yeah. Take it as a lesson or a blessing. That's what one of the things my dad used to say. Take it as a lesson or a blessing.
There you go.
It's kind of both. Larry, shut your mouth a little bit. I'm going to shut your mouth. But it's happened for a reason.
But these young cops nowadays, that's one of the things about leadership today is there's this thing I talk about, psychological safety of the officer. And officers are literally paralyzed doing their job today. With the environment that we got going on out there, cops don't know whether to be proactive, reactive. They don't know.
Afraid to make a decision.
Yeah,
all that discretion they're empowered with is now they're frozen.
Well, they're tentative and
and they're thinking things and rethinking things and covering their butt. Right.
Yeah, and one of the things about leadership today is that's why one of the things I tell people about leadership today is that it takes about 10 more times or 10 as much time as it used to be a leader. Used to you say, go do what I tell you to do. Now you got to answer the why. You got to lead with the why. Then you got to follow up with the why. Then you got to have a conversation. You got to be aware of their feelings. You got to be aware of the circle. I mean, there are so many things out there that literally freezes leaders today. And, that psychological safety of cops is a very important thing now that a lot of leaders are not paying attention to. Because, back when you guys were cops and we were cops, we never had to prove we were legitimate.
Right.
We never had to prove. When we got out of the car, people respected cops.
Right.
Now they have to prove on every single call they go to that they're legit and they belong there. Right. That's a crazy world the police in today. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, no one would question the testimony of a police officer back then, and now they question it constantly.
Oh yeah. If you don't have video, it didn't happen, right?
Yeah.
Can you remember the testimony on DUIs? like when you delivered testimony on DUI, when I used to arrest the DUI, they'd put me on the stand. They'd say, so what was your observation? I'd say it appeared he had a strong alcohol odor about his breath, and he appeared appreciably impaired. Anything else? No, sir. All right, you can step down. That was it. And today the reports are 20 pages long.
Oh yeah, you basically have to call. It's just like Ray was talking about, before. Police, you almost have to have experts, and the DUI officers are, I mean, really they train for it constantly. It constantly evolves. If it's pre-Miranda, post-Miranda, what kind of level of training? What's the science behind this? I mean, there's constant training now. That they have to do, and you can't say it's all drunk and arrested same. It's not it's not like that anymore.
Yeah, that's pretty much the testimony.
And defense attorneys are constantly trying to question the officer's credibility, not just whether or not they followed the proper procedures or not, and look for loopholes or technicalities. They just blatantly question their credibility, and it's like, hey, these are sworn police officers, and it's it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and that's where some of these cops who have some of these stupid Facebook posts regret those, because they end up in court.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Instagram, TikTok videos,
Snapchat,
whatever that stuff
all that
is.
kind of stuff.
Oh my
TikTok.
God. Yeah.
We've had. I know locally, a couple of TikTok videos got some people in trouble. Posting stuff with suspects in the back seat, just dumb stuff. I mean, obviously, I've got social media,
some Facebook posts,
but I've never. That's not the kind of stuff that I got in trouble for. That was for being too little vocal, support the police. I've never had anything come up as far as TikTok, in my skivvies on the hood of my car or something like that. Nothing like that, but
just in the living room.
Yeah.
No.
Ray may have seen that at once or twice.
Candles and some.
I'm still waiting for the video on that one.
It wasn't smooth. It's the blues, Ray. It was the
I'm
blues.
still traumatized about it.
Obviously, we got you some specialized
Ray's still getting counseling over there.
PTSD later on.
Oh Lord!
Post.
You're gonna have to let
God.
Dean in on that later, because that's a pretty good one there.
Well, how about in the future? I'd like to, and obviously we won't have time today, but I'd like to get into, you obviously written 3 books or 2, and you got another one coming. And then what you've done and how you developed that. He said you had a lot to do with the LEADA curriculum, FBI LEADA.
Yeah, and what a lot of people don't know is FBI LEADA is like a sister organization of the FBI, and they have like the National Executive Institute, the LEADA, and then they have the FBI NA, the National Academy.
Right.
And so that's the 3 things they kind of put into law enforcement. And the one thing I do give the FBI credit for, those guys are pretty smart, because they know that they can't do anything without local agencies. I mean, they understand, when they show up, the local agencies are the ones that's really going to, do a lot of the legwork for them and help them. And so as a result, they form these great relationships. And LEADA was one of those where you go to this 2-week course called LEADS, and it's this law enforcement executive development thing. And then out of that association sprung up, and it started this training back in 2007, 6, 7, something like that, 2007 or 8. And then it started going around the country. And then when I retired, I got a chance to start with those guys, and I helped them develop their supervisory curriculum, their command curriculum, and their executive. We changed it up because, like you said, when you're in a classroom and you ever had a class where somebody just PowerPoints you to death?
Oh yeah,
I mean, they just
PowerPoint you to sleep.
Oh my God! I mean, and they read you the slides, and we dumb down training for law enforcement all the time with that crap, but really, if you're going to get something out of it, it's got to be about connecting, right? You got to connect with the people. You got to find the thing that makes it tick and do all that stuff. So I helped them change that curriculum a little bit to have more of a connection, where when you were talking to the chief, you just weren't talking about budgets. You just weren't talking about, strategies. I tell people this a lot. I say, you can have the greatest strategy in the world to try to change your organization, but you got to realize that culture in your organization will literally eat strategy for breakfast. That's right. Your culture will tear a strategy apart. And you got to be able to connect and understand that. So we just changed some of that curriculum to really suit the needs. Like we added emotional intelligence into there, which is, and it's one of my pillars of, if you're going to lead today, you better be emotionally intelligent, because if you're not, you are never going to connect to anybody.
There's a book on emotional intelligence. Great book.
Yeah.
Everybody,
book.
yeah. everybody should read it. Yeah.
Dean, is that the mindset, self-reflection, self-healing, emotional intelligence?
Yeah, those are the four things, the four pillars.
I didn't pay attention in class.
No, he didn't.
I know.
I saw him writing stuff
I'm
down just before he walked in here. I think he looked it up for you. I think he cheated.
Hey, Dean, what you were talking about?
He is an A student.
Obviously.
Dean, you were talking about,
There
giving
is somebody going back and forth that I don't know about in there. His love there.
You were talking about giving, doing leadership or training, in the curriculum and so forth. I remember the in-service training and things I went to that had the greatest impact on me, and I remembered the curriculum the most was because of the instructor. It wasn't it wasn't the material. It was the instructor giving the presenting the material. And some of the instructors were just naturals at it, and they kept you engaged, and they laughed, and they were great leaders, and made some really boring stuff interesting. And you left there going, I remember all that stuff. Yeah. I remember every bit of it. So that's, then you got the guy in there, like you said, that's just guy or girl that's just pointing, doing the PowerPoint, and you're dozing off, and
turn the lights down,
and you're looking at it right. So if I can not snore while I'm napping back here, I'm good. So. Yeah. And that's unfortunately in law enforcement, a lot of it's checking the block, just check the block and get by with it and, move. I was just in St. Louis at St. Louis University about 2 weeks ago, and they had a shooting out there like June the 26th. First one they've ever had where they've actually, one of the campus police officers shot and killed somebody on campus with an AR-15. And a 9mm had literally come on campus, had gotten into a domestic with his girlfriend, and they encountered him, and he pointed it at them, and shots were fired, and ended up taking him out. And they were in an uproar about, like what was going on. And that's, you imagine, that's the world we're living in right now. And just connecting with them. You can't go out there and PowerPoint today's world because it's too damn real. Right. The incidences where people are dealing with are literally life-changing. Years ago, these things didn't, police shootings were police shootings, and God knows I've dealt with a lot of them, right, both as an officer and as a chief. But nowadays, a single incident where you think you're right can turn into this guy justified totally out there, but they have a DA or somebody out there that reviews these cases, very liberal. And it's just that psychological mindset that I was talking about. Those things would be cleared in 3 or 4 days. Now they take months and months.
And all the tragedy of what that puts the officer through in the meantime, even though it's good.
We had a show about that recently.
Yeah. And then, how long that takes. And literally what happens now with these generationally, with these new folks, when internal affairs, and you guys know this about internal affairs, I think it's one of the most outdated systems. Internal affairs in law enforcement agencies, as a general rule, are so outdated nowadays that they literally set people up for failure, not success, which internal affairs should really, that part of the organization should set people up for success, not failure. And what I mean by that is the truth is the truth. Right. And when you find the truth, you're successful. You're not trying to fire people, No,
I agree.
And we literally take 6 months to do an internal affairs investigation, and these young generation, they are separating totally mentally out of your organization. Absolutely. By then, and they don't come back. Even once they unplug, they're done.
Even when they're cleared, the trauma of going through that changes them forever.
Oh, it's and the reason is that's because the way we think, we're also emotionally connected.
Kind of like being in a plane crash and surviving it. You ain't never gonna be the same.
No,
after that,
you're traumatized, right? And then you look at the organization entirely different. And one thing about this generation is once they change the way they look, they're done.
Yeah, you're right.
And they, like our generation, we were.
And as a chief, it's a small fortune to train each one of those people.
Oh God, yes. You got cops.
Hire them, the whole process.
I'm from Asheville, North Carolina, is where I started out being a cop, and I live in Mills River, which is about 15 miles outside of Asheville now. And this town has become so liberal with its interpretation of the police that there's 245 cops here, and since George Floyd last year in May, when that occurred, they've lost 91 cops.
Of course.
It's a lot.
91 cops out of 245.
Did they move somewhere, Dean, or did they just get out of business?
Go somewhere else and do something besides this and not have the scrutiny and make more money.
Yeah, so. I mean, did they ever crunch the numbers and just decide if they went somewhere else, or they're like, hey, we're getting out of the business. We're gonna go work at Lowe's.
I think it was a little both.
Yeah.
But what happened was, and you can't blame these agencies. They started poaching them, local agencies, and sheriff departments in Greenville, South Carolina, and then in Spartanburg and the towns around. They all realized, man, they're leaving mass exodus. I'll tell you how bad it was in Asheville. Think about this for a second. You're talking about the days of policing, how they changed. In the middle of town, Asheville. Now, I promise you, you can drive right down one of the main stretches called Patton Avenue, which is right downtown, goes right downtown Asheville. There's a billboard that the Greensboro Police Department put up that said, "We are hiring lateral entry police officers. Come join our force."
Dean, I've seen that because I have a home in Spruce Pine, so I drive right through the middle, and I go down Patton Avenue, and I've seen that billboard.
Yes.
Seriously.
Now think about a town in your own state recruiting officers with a billboard in your town.
I've noticed
that's pretty blatant, Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, it's definitely crazy. Whole different world.
Hey, Dean, we're probably a little past where we wanted to go. We got another gentleman coming in.
Okay. No worries, man.
I'd really like to have you on and let's pick a topic. And some of your stuff, and obviously don't want you giving training out without coming, somewhere to do that. But some of the things that you'd like to see, or some things you'd like to talk about, and it doesn't have to necessarily be just law enforcement. I think when you've been through where you've been through, the kind of leadership and your thought process, and obviously you're down to earth, humble guy. Just talking to you on the phone tells me a lot. Okay. So I'd love to have you talk more, and we'll get Ray on, and we'll pick a subject. He and I will kind of spitball it back and forth what we'll talk about, and we'll get you on again if that's okay.
Well, hey, I'd love to. And hey, look, Ray Walden better than I do. One thing about Ray's one of those guys, when he speaks, you need to have a notepad, right? Because he can say some pretty dang good stuff. Yeah, he looks pretty dumb, but he's pretty damn smart.
I wish somebody tell my wife that.
I know. He got in the truck today. I said, damn, I felt like I had to pull him out of the woods. I mean, like he out there like a homeless vagrant, just living off the land or something. Does his dad have a belly?
I'm loving that beard.
I'm going to top in here.
I'm going to ask him if he'll just let me touch it before he leaves today. Hey, everybody, that was
get a video of that, because but he's one of them pretty damn smart guys. He might play a little coy, sometime as shit. He's one of them guys you need a notepad. When he starts talking, he's freaking. If I was starting a business today, by God, he'd be one of the people I'd be bringing to figure out.
I'm sure.
Hey, Dean, thanks for calling in today. We really appreciate you being the call-in guest. And I want to let everybody know that was Dean Crisp, former 2-time police chief, and he is also the author of Essential Leadership Lessons from the Thin Blue Line. So check it out on Amazon.
Thank you, sir.
Great book. And
Thank you, guys. Thank you, man. All right, appreciate it. Love you, Ray. See you guys. Talk to you soon.
Right, have a good day.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care, Dean. All right, and we also had Ray Walden with us again today, and he's
going to hang around in the studio. See, I'm his ride anyway. It's a long walk to the west side, so he ain't going nowhere. He's going to sit right over there.
That's awesome. Well, he if you didn't catch the last show, Ray is a former director at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. He was number 3 of a pretty large agency there. What, like 2,000 people, 1,600 sworn?
Yeah, like 1,800 sworn, plus all the
$400+ million
3,500 employees.
And he was also under Sheriff
Clay County,
SO2. So glad to have him here. So that's it for today. Next, we'll have Teddy Goldgate on. We'll continue the leadership series. Yes, sir. Great series. Right. So make sure you tune in for the next episode. And that's it today for RealJax with Jim and Larry. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.